Long, long, long ago, in Persia, there lived two friends, Musa and Najib. They were prosperous and well-respected merchants, and one day they began a journey that would long be remembered. They had horses and camels and servants, and they set off. They planned to visit all of the ports and all of the markets in faraway lands and buy and sell and trade and return home wealthy. Well, they traveled along for many, many days in the desert with nothing but sand to be seen on all sides. But finally, after many weeks, they came to the mountains of northern Persia. And one evening they camped along a river. Now they could see that the river crossing was going to be a difficult one, for the river was large and it was wide and deep and muddy and swift flowing. Musa took a rope and he waded into the water. It was his plan to make it to the other side of the river, and then the rest of the caravan could use that rope to guide them safely across. And all went well at first. But then Musa stumbled, he tripped, he lost his footing, he dropped the rope, and it was clear that the river was going to sweep him downstream. Immediately and without hesitation, his friend Najib plunged into the water, and with great difficulty he made it to Musa's side and was able to bring them both back to safety. Musa called for one of his servants. He said, "I wish for you to carve some words in the rock of that mountain." "Of course, master," said the servant. "Just tell me what you want carved, and I will begin at once." By the time the caravan was ready to move on, they could all see carved into the stone of that mountain these words: "Traveler, in this place, Najib saved the life of his friend Musa." Well, they traveled along for days and weeks and months. They went to faraway lands and they visited ports and markets, and finally they were ready to return home. Their camels and their horses were laden with silks and tapestries and other fine goods. And they traveled along for weeks and months, and finally they came to the banks of the river where they had camped so long before. This time they could see that the crossing would be much easier. The water level in the river had gone down. It was not as swift flowing. It was not going to be a difficult crossing. That night after supper, Musa and Najib talked, as they often did in the evenings. And at first the conversation was light and friendly and casual. But then, who knows why, the topic changed, and they began to speak louder and more stridently and more harshly, and finally they were shouting at each other, and then in frustration Najib raised his hand and struck Musa. Musa picked up a stick and began to write some words in the sand. And immediately his servant came over and said, "Master, do you not wish me to carve those words in the rock like the others?" "I do not," he said. "But master, do you not realize that within a day the wind and the sand will have swept away your words?" "I do know that," he said. "And I hope that by the time these words are gone, that this memory will also be swept away from my heart." They both looked down at the words that Musa was writing in the sand. And what they said was this: "Traveler, in this place, Najib broke the heart of his friend Musa." Oh, Musa looked at his servant and he said, "You see, if you would be happy, it would be important to learn which words should be carved into the rock and which words should be written in the sand."